I worked in the cannery when I was 10 years of age, and at that time I was getting 15 cents an hour.
We need unions. When the country started, there was no union. People suffered.
Oh, you could go for 36 hours without a stop. I mean, without a stop.
Overall, I don't like unions. I think they have too much power.
In some cases, we used to swear he would fire us because he didn't like the way we parted our hair, you know, that sort of thing.
The union comes and protect all the workers, all the immigrants, and make it a great country because of a union.
It was a matter of their conditions on the job, the way they were treated. And before that, they were treated like damn cattle.
Well, the boss came up to me with a $5 bill. He says, get you some whiskey, boy, and drink your fill. Get the time, he said, you can travel on down the line. I am a union man, gonna leave you behind.
What do you think of unions? Are they good or bad? Do they have too much power or too little? To answer these questions, let's take a look at why unions first became necessary. The people that you will see and hear in this program are the men and women who worked to build BC's unions.
Raise your pay, get the time, he said, travel on down the line. I am a union man, gonna leave you behind.
They used to use children to work, piling cans and trays, you know. No overtime, straight through. All you had to do was dash home, have your lunch, and then you go back to work again. Half of the times you used to work till 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, and that was every day.
You went into your place, you held your lamp halfway between the roof and the floor. If you put it down, it went out in black damp. That's a heavier than air gas. And if you put it up, you lit the explosive gas on fire.
Yes, there was gas. Before maybe 1901, I think there was 60 odd killed. Number 6 mine right alongside of the village office there.
When that explosion took place in number 6, it was a month before they got into and out. There wasn't a soul. It took them a month. They had to flood the mine to get the bodies.
Prisoners of starvation, arise, ye wretched of the earth, for justice thunders condemnation.
We gather here every year to honor the lives of the miners and their families who lived and worked and often died in the mines under deplorable conditions. Their efforts to organize a union and their subsequent struggles for better wages and working conditions still benefit us today.
Although laws existed which set safety standards in BC coal mines, they were ignored by mine owners. The miners were forced to go on strike. They struck for one reason, the right to have a union, so that the employers would listen to their demands for better conditions.
Batchin' in a boathouse in the middle of Comox Lake. Batchin' in a boathouse with nothing but hard beefsteak. When the keg of Pilsner beer, there was batchers batched in floating boathouses out here.
And so why did they end up on boathouses on the lake?
All this land belonged to the company.
We moved on to what they called Strikers Beach, lived in tents the first winter. And a lot more. We wasn't the only ones.
To keep the mines open during the strike, scabs were brought in under police protection. The mines were kept partially open, but the strike continued. So the owners called for even a bigger show of force.
They marched 1,000 men from Victoria to Nanaimo. And they split the battalion in Nanaimo. 500 stayed in Nanaimo and they brought 500 up here. Closed the schools, put us kids out of school on the street, and put the machine gun up in the yard.
In the face of machine guns and the poverty brought on by a 2-year strike, the miners were forced back to work. Without a union to back them up, some miners couldn't get their jobs back.
They had a had a blacklist hanging up on the wall with a paper over it. There was some got back, you know, but an awful lot didn't get back, see?
He used to go out in the woods and stand on a stump and make speeches by himself, you know. And that's the way he got used to speaking in public.
He come to work in number 5 mine.
And how long did he work here?
Oh, he must have worked right up to the time of the come on the strike, I think. But he might not. He might have left there, went back to Trail.
So he was organizing in Trail.
Oh, yeah.
They elected him president of the union up there.
Goodwin was staying right there in that hotel. Goodwin and I had our meals together in the dining room. Goodwin was a very, very sick man. His teeth were like little pieces of barbed wire, rusted barbed wire. Now, what I'm getting around to is this. Previous to the end of the strike, conscription was invoked, and everybody had to go to be examined, and Goodwin was exempted. Now, that's very important. Then, after the strike was all over, Goodwin was called up, and he was passed as A1, and he wouldn't enlist, so he beat it down to Vancouver Island. He was hunted by the police for evading conscription.
Everything went quiet. That was when the word come out that Ginger had been shot, killed. And there was no more police went up after that. Just one man. That's all they were interested in.
I got these pictures there. The funeral, the biggest funeral that was ever known in Cumberland.
The casket was packed shoulder high. Right through Cumberland, shoulder high.
Come all you good workers, good news to you I'll tell of how the good old Union has come in here to dwell. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
The use of militia and police to break strikes during this early period was common. During the general strike in Winnipeg in 1919, when conditions were so bad that almost an entire city struck in protest, mounted police were used to break up demonstrations, and 2 people were killed. Then, in 1923, the militia was called out to break a Nova Scotian steelworkers' strike, and 8,000 coal miners went out with them to protest this continued use of militia. This strike brought about federal legislation which was to restrict the use of militia as a strike-breaking force. However, some years later, when BC miners in the coastal town of Antioch went on strike, little had changed.
As soon as word got out that there was a strike on, the officials got busy, and they did bring in a couple of cannon, big guns, and they put them up on the hill so they could keep an eye on things. And then any of these men who had anything to do with the strike, they were given 1 hour to leave town. This actually happened.
I don't want your millions, mister. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want...
You worked 8 hours a day for 20 cents. 20 cents a day. And the food was pretty bad, it wasn't very good. And the camps were controlled by the army, federal government.
You said you were working 8 hours a day in the camp for 20 cents a day. What kind of work were you doing?
Road work.
This is how a lot of the roads in BC got built.
Yes. Whole Princeton Highway was built by slave labor.
This 9-pound hammer is a little too heavy, but for my size, So roll on, buddy, don't you roll so slow. How can I roll when the wheels don't go?
Relief Camp Workers Union. We had a union, and we organized a general strike of all camps in BC in the spring of 35, in April.
Now, what led up to that organizing?
Well, we wanted the wages. That was the big factor in the camps. And everybody was passing the buck. The city government, the provincial government, they had no control over the camp, so we can't do anything. You'll have to see the federal government about that. Couldn't contact the federal government, so we organized a trek to Ottawa.
But the unemployed's On to Ottawa trek was never to reach the capital. Riding freight trains from BC, 2,000 unemployed men got as far as Regina, where they were stopped by the government, who allowed only a small delegation to go on to Ottawa. When the delegation could get no satisfaction, they returned to Regina to continue the trek and push their demands for better conditions in the relief camps. The government's reaction was an attempt to arrest the organizers, and this started what was to become known as the Regina Riot.
And there was a mass meeting called to explain to the people of Regina what happened in Ottawa. And that meeting was attacked by the OCMP. And they didn't differentiate who was a trekker or who wasn't. They just beat anybody up that happened to get in the way. I know I got up on a garbage can to rally as many as I could to get them back to the stadium, to get them out of there. And one of the people that were close by told me that they were using guns. I says, no, there's no guns being used. And if they're using guns, they're using blanks. And all of a sudden, the concrete over my head, I was standing on it, started to go down my neck. The shots were going over my head. And I went right down in that garbage can to get out of the way.
It was a tough business, of course, and most loggers simply regarded it as a hopeless job, you see. But these were some pretty stubborn, pretty good men. Incidentally, almost all Scandinavians.
Of course it was dangerous. Come to the union was established, somebody got killed. Well, that didn't stop anybody from working, no. You just throw them to the side, that's all, and kept on working. You took them out when you had time.
It got so bad that men didn't walk on the job. They didn't walk between various little jobs that they were doing, but they ran. Well, in January 1934, the workers at Blodell voted to go on strike. And the strike gradually spread until it included every major operation on the BC coast, even including those on the Queen Charlotte Islands.
We didn't get recognition of the union nor recognition of camp committees. But we did put the fear of God into the employers.
You see, the big breakthrough in organization came in 1942 on the Queen Charlotte Islands. Now, without the boat, the organization could never have been established the way it was on the Queen Charlotte. So that when the provincial government passed a new BC Labor Act, which gave workers the right to bargain collectively, the whole complexion of the situation changed, and the union began to forge ahead. BC lumber workers were the first people to win the 40-hour week in Canada. And indeed, this is why the boss loggers withstood our demand for so long. It was a 3-month strike, you see. And the rest of the employers were not at all happy about the prospect of granting the 40-hour week. But we forced it, and very soon, of course, it spread right across Canada.
The first organization there of women, it was called the Women's Labor League. I was totally involved with their participation in what they were doing, and that was getting women away from the coffee clutch and the gossip circles and so on, and discussing the things that were really important and relevant. A lot of these women then did participate in this big hunger march, which was to get unemployment insurance.
In the Victoria Hunger March of 1932, it took 3 solid days of demonstration to get the provincial government to agree to unemployment insurance. But the agreement was only on paper. There was to be no unemployment insurance until 1940.
There once was a union maid who never was afraid of the goons, the ginks, the company finks, and the deputy sheriffs that made the raid. She went to a union hall when a meeting it was called, and when the company boys came round, she always stood her ground. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union.
In 1953, legislation was put on the books in BC which guaranteed that men and women would receive equal pay for equal work. But as was true many times before, this legislation had little to do with the actual conditions on the job. In BC's fish canneries, it was only through active organizing on the part of the Fishermen's Union that cannery workers were able to gain their legal right of equal pay for equal work, and it took 20 years.
I had written a leaflet on one occasion calling for a boycott of a certain job. They had men doing that job and paid them the men's rate, but when this operation became quite lucrative, then they put the women on it at the women's rate. It was a real classic example. I mean, everybody could see that. In 1973, we established equal pay for equal work.
Well, if wage restraint gets in the way, we're gonna roll right over them. We're gonna roll right over them. We're gonna roll right over them. If wage restraint gets in the way, we're gonna roll right over them. We're gonna roll the union.
1975 saw the first use of wage controls in peacetime Canada. Wage controls were seen as a direct attack on collective bargaining, because it meant that even if a union won its demands, the government could step in and make them settle for less.
I think this legislation is against the working class. It's to retard the working class movement, organized or unorganized, and I suggest to you, you won't take the Imperial Oil president to jail, or you won't take anybody from the Bar Association to jail, but it may be possible you'll take some trade union workers or their leaders. And I suggest to you, if we're going to be equal, we want to be equal. And you better answer that one.
And if the boss gets in the way, we're gonna roll right over him. We're gonna roll right over him. We're gonna roll right over him. If the boss gets in the way, we're gonna roll right over him. We're gonna roll the union on. We're gonna roll. We're gonna roll. We're gonna roll the union on. The union on. We're gonna roll.
I came from another country, and I work here. And I like working in the hospital, taking care of the patients.
We were lied to, deceived, you know.
Like all these other people.
Exactly, we're in the same boat with everybody else.
So, not much point in coming to work.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the water. Shall not be moved. We're fighting for our union. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our union. We shall not be moved, just like a tree.
We're simply here fighting for our very basic rights as working people. The right not to have a government bring in legislation to smash a union. The right of a government not to use its laws to steal the livelihood of tens of thousands of people, most of whom are women.
I'm going to lose my job and stand in line for welfare and be turned down for that too. So I'm going to do everything I can while I have the power to do it right now. I'm not going to wait around anymore. I am fed up.
You know, I think it's pretty strange in the province of British Columbia that Gordon Campbell breaks the law and he gets to keep his job, and healthcare workers who have committed no crime but delivering quality public health care are being done out of their jobs. We say justice for healthcare workers and justice for...
We're fighting for our union, we shall not be moved. We're fighting for our union, we shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. The boss, he is a phony, he shall be removed. The boss, he is a phony, he shall be removed, just like the stump that's floating down the sewer. He shall be removed. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the water.
It looks as if BC teachers will not be heading back to their classrooms tomorrow, and their strike will go on. That's despite the fact that a judge has declared the teachers in contempt of court, which could result in heavy fines or even the jailing of union leaders.
My friends, this is not just a fight with the BC Teachers Federation. This is a fight for workers' rights in this province, British Columbia.
That legislation means larger class sizes. It means less specialist teacher support. It means less support for the students with special needs in this province. Mr. Campbell, you lied.
Well, as Nellie McClung and Rosa Parks did in previous times, sometimes when laws are just so bad that you have to stand up against them, then you stand up and do what you need to do.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our union, we shall not be moved. We're fighting for our union, we shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the wall.
So we put out a call to the labor movement, some of the other peace organizations, which are fragmented all over the place. We got them to agree to throw their lot in with us. From the first year was 82 that we had a demonstration. We had, I think, 35,000. And the next year, of course, a hell of a lot more people turned out. The fear of getting blown all to hell made people think a little better. You know, when you get up around 65 or 80 or 90 or 100,000 people out in the streets, they're certainly not all people that belong to organizations. They were individual citizens. By this time, the major churches was involved in the committee. And they were a pretty important part of the whole demonstration.
We meet today in freedom's cause and raise our voices high. We'll join our hands in union strong to battle or to die. Hold the fort, for we are coming. Union hearts beat strong. Side by side we'll battle onward. Victory will come. Fierce and long the battle rages, yet we will not fear. Help will come when it is needed. Cheer my comrades.
Unions? I don't touch them. I have no idea about unions.
No idea?
No, they have escaped me.
I think some of them provide a great service. I think other ones are out of control and are worse than the organizations that they're up against.
Come on, you good workers, good news to you all tell. It's how the good old Union has come in here to dwell, singing, which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Today, almost half of BC workers do not have a union. Although labor legislation provides protection for many workers, others are not so lucky.
I would like to see the bank employees
unionized, mostly women who work for financial institutions who make very little money.
Farm workers and domestic workers have almost no rights, and 3/4 of all the working women in this province still get paid less than men.
These are the reasons why the union, too, became such a vital issue. It was the matter of their conditions on the job, the way they were treated. And before that, they were treated like damn cattle. After that, some semblance of a better life began to appear.
Oh, workers, can you stand it? Oh, tell me how you can.
But yeah, we'd all be working for nothing without the unions taking care of us.
Singing, which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Unions? The working man? Yeah, I like them.
Will you be a lousy scab or will you be a man? Singing, which side?
Unions are good.
Which side are you